Welcome everyone to Trend Talks Life. I am your host, Erin Tomie. Today we're talking to Trend Micro AI lab researcher, Josiah Hagen. Josiah, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself, Erin?
I'm awesome. Super glad to have you on Trend Talks Life today. And I would love to just start with you sharing a bit about your role here at Trend Micro.
Sure. I'm an individual contributor in Trend Micro's AI lab. So I work on special problems at the intersection of cybersecurity and artificial intelligence.
Very cool. And Josiah, something unique I learned about you recently is that you are the named inventor on over a dozen patents in the last 10 years. As someone who knows next to nothing about patents, can you walk me through the process of actually earning one?
Sure, be happy to. I'm often acting as an evangelist for Trend Micro's patent program, trying to bring other people into the program with their great ideas. And really, that's where it all starts. You need to have something new. Novelty is the most important thing in a patentable idea. It has to be some invention that improves the quality of a solution or invents a new solution. And the process, different organizations have different ways of going about it, but typically in any organization, you essentially have some internal process to decide, should we go after this as a stake in the intellectual property space? And within Trend, we kind of balance the novelty and the inevitability of the patent. We must have something new in order to patent it. The patent office isn't interested in things that are already done. But then, as a cybersecurity company, we need to make sure that it's relevant to our business. Is this something that's actually solving a useful problem that's likely to be adopted by industry, that we can use in our product, or otherwise improve digital safety with? And so we'll go through an internal review process. When somebody writes up the idea, it doesn't have to be completely fleshed out or even proven. It definitely helps to show that it works. And then after the internal review process, we work with patent lawyers to draft a formal patent that then goes to the U.S. Patent and Trade Office. And then 2 to 5 years later, you may find out that you got a patent.
Wow, 2 to 5 years. That's quite the waiting period for that kind of thing. But I'm sure they probably get a lot of proposals. So I can understand why it would take long. I think the interesting part for me with the patents is that obviously Trend has been around for several decades, since 1988. But we're not doing the same thing and we're not using the same products that we did back in 1988. And we've continuously evolved to follow along with the threat landscape, which is very different in 2025 than it was back in 1988. So it makes sense that the team would be continuously coming up with new processes and new ideas and new ways to do cybersecurity.
Yeah, the technology landscape is always changing, right? AI has been, improving by leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, which gives us quite new capabilities that offer new solutions. But, besides just the changing technology, there's also changes in the threat landscape. It's always a cat and mouse game in security. It's one of the things that really keeps me going in this industry, is that there are always new problems to solve. And it makes it compelling that you have to stay on top of, what threat actors are doing and come up with new techniques that find them in ways that they weren't expecting.
Well, speaking of current problems, I know that today you're very involved in the development of standards and governance for AI security. You've spoken in our intro about working in the AI research lab. Can you share the particular projects you're involved in and the team is involved in and what you are most passionate about right now?
I'd be happy to. One of the things that I've been working a bit on lately is a work stream for the Coalition for Secure AI. I'm one of the co-leaders of the work stream, and it's preparing defenders for a changing threat landscape with AI. The goal in the whole Coalition for Secure AI is to develop new standards and best practices for securing AI systems. So this is very, very close to Trend Micro's heart. We're a sponsor of the Coalition for Secure AI. And as part of that effort, I have the opportunity to work with architects and distinguished technologists from around big tech, and in order to develop what we agree on, some normative statements about what is we need to do in order to better secure AI systems, including building new frameworks, new standards, and communicating best practices. Besides the standards work in the Coalition for Secure AI, I'm often engaged in policy circles informing policymakers about either threats or risks from AI use, or how AI use may be leveraged to enable defenders to better defend any systems from cyber attacks. So there are kind of three components that are in play across these standards and policy groups, whether it's securing AI systems or looking at how AI can enable the offensive capabilities of threat actors, and then finally, how can it help us as well in defending enterprise systems?
We spoke a little earlier about how quickly things change, and I would imagine you're kind of putting a framework together for all of this that is going to be kind of a recommendation for organizations to follow or take into consideration. But we talked about how quickly things change. What is the plan for keeping those frameworks up to date, or maybe even a little ahead of where things are? Because I imagine that's not something that you can just publish today and then kind of leave it for, a couple of years and then maybe come back to it.
That's definitely true. You need organizations with committed individuals who are going to maintain the quality of the artifacts that are produced. So, the Coalition for Secure AI, for example, is part of OASIS, which is a standards group that gave us things like STIX, our Structured Threat Information Exchange format. They're very experienced in keeping things up to date with the changing landscape. That said, it really takes the people involved to be committed to staying on top of it. And it also takes their expertise to create things that are durable in the face of change, so that even the initial output is something that will be lasting, even if there are changes that need to be made to it over time.
In the AI research space, what area interests you the most? What are you really keeping your eye on?
I'm really interested in understanding how it is that we can characterize the behavior of AI systems. If we just assume for a moment that AI systems are going to be incredibly more capable than humans soon, how do we deal with that? And how can we even, look at this thing and determine if it's safe or not? And so really, I think developing solutions that can help us pattern the behavior of these systems to understand what nominal behavior looks like. What is the personality of this AI? And how can you tell if it's gone off the rails? We're increasingly putting more work in the hands of automated systems. And knowing that they're behaving according to the goals that we have, I think that if they're well aligned is really important. So I would say alignment evaluations are really what I'm interested in.
This starts to get me going down a sci-fi movie plotline path as I listen to you speak about that, with keeping an eye on things and making sure they're actually doing what we've asked them to do.
Are you more worried about HAL or Skynet or some other AI system?
I think Skynet. That's probably the one that comes to mind the most. But Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like when I hear you and the team speak about it.
Yeah, and really a lot of the focus on alignment evaluation, which is really not well understood at all at this point. We're just developing techniques. Alignment evaluations are in order to deal with the challenges of autonomy, where we allow computers some agency to take action. And, in the Terminator milieu, we have Skynet hooked up to all of the defense systems. We already have autonomous weapon systems that have been used extensively in Russia's war against Ukraine. In spite of all the best efforts by NGOs like Stop Killer Robots that also have feared for our Skynet future. So, we need to understand what it is these systems are going to do when we set them free in the world, especially if they're carrying weapons.
Josiah, thank you so much for all the work that you and the team are doing. I think this is really important, especially right now as we've seen this become more and more mainstream topic and not just something that, you and the team have been working on for years. I really appreciate you teaching me something new about patents as well. And I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Well, thanks for having me, Erin. I'm happy to chat anytime. Have a good one.